Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Business Podcast, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today is a very special episode. Today I brought back Mr. Tom Wiggins on the line, and he has just now released a new book with us. So it's the Business Leaders Edition of Money Matters, Volume 3, which just hit number 1 on the Amazon Hot New Release list. And also, this is Tom's, as I mentioned, a second book with us. So we're going to get into this one, but first I just want to say, Tom, welcome back to the show.
Thanks very much, Adam. Glad to be back. We had fun the first time. We're going to have fun the second time.
Man, so excited to get into this one with you. So your first chapter, you knocked it out of the park in our last book. So that one was Leadership as Easy as 1, 2, 3, and ABC. And now your follow-up, McLaren Memories, Manifesting to Move Forward. When I read that, I was like, and you remember you submitted both and said, Adam, which one do you want to choose from? And I said, I want them both, but we got to wait for the second one for our next book. and that's the first time that's happened, so I'm excited to have you in here. That being said, let's just kind of start from the basics. So what was the inspiration for this chapter?
Well, the inspiration, the first book, I was excited about both of them, but as you know, I had not been an author before. So I wrote two and kind of threw it out to you and said, pick. And you gave me the best answer possible, which is I'm not going to pick, you get both. So I got that twofer, and, we went with leadership, and that made sense, and that was kind of, more of a commercial thing, but now I wanted to go with something that was more of a personal thing and go from leadership, to something very personal, manifestation. And so that was the inspiration to now why don't I, step back from leadership roles that I may have had in businesses and organizations to something that's more personal inside me. And that was sort of the genesis of what became McLaren Memories.
So in the story, you talk about, and to the listeners, we're not going to have time to go through the whole story, but we do that on purpose so that you'll buy the book. That's why we do it. So definitely want you to go out there and pick up a copy. But in your chapter, you talk about having this model of a car. Let's start there. Start from there, please. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. I'm going to jump back even a little bit further than that to the late 1960s when I was a little kid and I joined my first car club, which is the Hot Wheels Car Club. You have to fast forward from the 60s to the 90s to when I had a fascination with my dream car, which was the McLaren, the F1 that came out in the 90s. And very expensive car, about $1 million plus. So I bought a detailed metal model of that McLaren that I had in my living room. And that became sort of my icon for manifestation, and that was the genesis of this chapter. Wow.
So let's go a little bit further because you do actually get into this McLaren. And as I'm reading your writing, I'm thinking to myself, man, I really want to drive a McLaren, Tom.
I highly recommend it.
Me too. We're going to have to sell some more books before I get into McLaren, though.
Yep.
So let's get a little bit further.
Yeah, so I had this vision, that someday, some way, I'm going to drive a McLaren. I didn't know how the pieces would fall into place. I didn't know, what the pathway would be for that. But I had that. I looked at it every day. I knew it was completely different than my background for decades in consulting and wealth management, securities trading, things that had nothing to do, with this dream that I had. And then, through the book, I go through a little bit of the history of the ebb and flow of the economy and the Great Recession. I had no idea where we'd be now in the year CV19, which is what I refer to this year as, for COVID-19. But all of these big changes throughout everything was always this underlying, someday, some way, I'm going to drive that McLaren. And it was just at a later point when I was working with a personal growth coach that we became sort of more clear and intentional on how I could manifest and make that happen.
Let's talk about, I want to spend a little bit more time on the manifesting part. So
sure.
I know like the, and the visualizing part, I should say. So I know you mentioned in the book about like getting in your car and imagining that. I mean, tell us more about that one.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, that was an actual experience that I had with her. I mean, I don't want to go too much into the details of it because, like you said, I want folks to buy the book and read the whole process. But yeah, I needed to make that concrete, to take it from the dream. I mean, you have to have a dream. Everything starts with a dream. But I mean, how do you make that dream to become a reality? And in working with her and working through a process, which I detail in the book, I was able to translate that dream into reality. And a lot of it had to do with kind of tapping into past positives. And I go into in the story about past personal adventures that I had that were automotive related. And then later in my post-financial world, when I became a test driver, I go into some of my favorite professional experiences, and I detail those. And then I go back to things that I had picked up along the way. If you remember the very popular book and video, The Secret, that was all the rage back in the day, that was part of what was in the mix for how I was manifesting. And things going back as far as 100 years ago with a memorandum from the Office of the Judge Advocate General for the U.S. Navy Department about this or something better, which is a phrase that later became kind of co-opted in personal growth. But all of these things were sort of in my mix, stirring the pot for how am I going to create or take a dream and make that from just something in my head to something concrete.
So when I read this, I was like, man, not only did you drive a McLaren, but I would log. I'll just read it straight from there. I would log over 5,000 miles in the car. Absolutely amazing.
Well, the thing about that is I recently had, I forget who it was, but somebody reached out to me about McLarens and driving them just in the last few days, and I said, well, the best part is not only did I manifest the ability to drive it, I didn't make car payments, I didn't have insurance, I didn't have maintenance, and they paid me to do it. So
yeah, wait a minute.
It's like this is way better. And also, if you look at the typical driver of a supercar, they keep it, on an epoxied floor in their garage, take it out.
Yeah, they might not even have 5,000 miles on it. I was thinking about that too. Like,
yeah, they're putting 100 miles on a weekend to show it off to their buddies, and then putting it back under a car cover. So to lodge 5,000 miles on it, that was just like, it was an example of how you can dream for something, and if you're lucky, your dream is going to even exceed that dream and be even better.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. I love it. I mean, and that's when I read that, I thought about that. And I'm like, I bet you there's like people that own McLarens that haven't driven them 5,000 miles. Bet you. And you just validated it's like an epoxy.
Well, and as a side note, right when the particular McLaren that I was test driving for came into the United States, and I was driving the only singular prototype in the United States at that time. Right after it became available, I looked up, how much could I rent one for? It was so much fun, and it was $1,700 a day to rent one. I'm like, okay, get paid to do it or pay $1,700 to do it? Door number one, please. I'll take getting paid.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Well, Tom, that being said, I just wanted to, again, congratulate you. It's been a pleasure having you back on the show. It was an honor to publish you not once but twice. Loved your writing and definitely enjoyed it. I know our readers are going to get a lot of value out of this. That being said, if somebody wants to follow up and they want to connect with you on your writing or anything else, I mean, what's the best way for listeners to do that?
I would say, well, first of all, I need to say a brief thank you to Mission Matters Media, not only for the second book hitting #1 in Amazon's hot new releases, but being top 10 in a couple of other categories. This is another dream that was beyond. That could be another story about how I visioned all of this to happen. But yeah, thank you so much to Mission Matters Media. But to follow me, probably the easiest way would be on LinkedIn, LinkedIn/in/Tom Wiggins, or on Amazon, amazon.com/author/Tom-Wiggins. It's all under case for Amazon. They're very case sensitive. So it's amazon.com/author/Tom-Wiggins.
Fantastic. Well, hey, Tom, appreciate you coming back on the show. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget, subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Business, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments on the video. I mean, love to know what kind of projects and things you're working on also, too. So let's take the conversation over to the YouTube community. And, Tom, thanks again for coming on.